All right, welcome back, Atlanta Sports guys, here on a Friday afternoon where everything is great in Atlanta sports. And by everything's great, Atlanta United fans really going through it this week. You know, Joseph Martinez, my family, diehard Atlanta United folks, really struggling with the direction. And my dad's already been down in the dumps for years now with Miguel Almiron being gone. Like, that was his dude. Any conversation you get into with my father about soccer, he played college soccer at University of North Georgia, so he's a big soccer guy, and he he just was so upset. And Almiron was his dude. Like, he was all in on Almiron. It hasn't been the same since he left, and now Joseph Martinez following him out, and he goes to Inter Milan. And man, what a rough situation for Atlanta United fans. They have never been this down in the dumps. It's kind of staggering to think about how far they've fallen from how it started versus how it's going right now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going down to Inter Miami, and he's gonna. I mean,
Inter Miami. I think I said Milan.
Yeah, you said Milan. I was like, it's fine. I wasn't gonna correct you. I know what you meant, but he was. It was to the point. He wasn't the same guy post knee injury. It wasn't working. And he's too expensive and taking up too important of a spot as a designated player. They have only three of those positions. And he's making a lot of money, and he deserved that money. Don't take that the wrong way, but he's kind of coming off the bench. He just wasn't producing in that same level post knee injury, and I think Atlanta United is going to be better for this move. It's a difficult move, but they're going to be better for it. I have a positive long term outlook for Atlanta United, just because we have new management coming in. It was the his name escapes me off the top of my head, but he's the old general manager of the Seattle Sounders and Sporting KC and everything else. He brings titles to town, and he puts together winning products. And I think this is the best situation he's ever been in. He hasn't had pockets this deep in his entire MLS career, and he still won championships. So I'm optimistic for the long term of what this team and this product is going to be on the soccer pitch. But, it still sucks losing a guy like Joseph Martinez, a guy who meant so much to the city, a guy who really helped birth soccer culture in this city in a meaningful way. So it's going to hurt at first, and then the team is going to be better for it. It's kind of been trending away from him anyway. So it was the necessary divorce that happens with every athlete, seemingly. So sucks for now, but it will be fine.
Yeah, we'll see what ultimately happens going into next year, but I guess fingers crossed is all we can do.
Make the playoffs, man. They've missed the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years.
Also, very interested to see how it goes being only on Apple TV for a full year. Like, all MLS is Apple TV, so I'm very curious to see what that looks like. Are they going to have
regional coverage on Apple TV? Is that...
That I'm not sure, but it's
I'm going to be a little PO'd if I can't watch Atlanta United matches.
No, it's like everybody's on it. So you can watch. I don't think there's any blackout rules or anything. So you'll be able to do that. But
it's Sunday ticket style?
Yes. But only... Imagine it's just only Sunday ticket. That's the only way you can watch the NFL. That's what this is. Like, every single match is only on Apple TV. And it's twice a week. They have a set schedule, which is also a big thing.
Well, when they buy... Oh, that part's awesome. Part's awesome. The worst thing is when because I'm a season ticket holder for Atlanta United. The worst thing that comes is when it's just a random Thursday or a Tuesday or some random day. It's like, oh, there's a home match today. What?
Yeah, they got rid of it. That was terrible. Like,
awful.
You would just be like,
awful.
Are they on right now? Does Atlanta United have a game right? What?
One of the best parts about the NFL, well, in Major League Baseball, it's happening every day. So you just assume it's on unless it's not. College football every single Saturday. NFL football every single Thursday, every single Sunday on Monday night. It's consistent. MLS, it's shooting itself in the foot. Yeah. And it's just one of the necessary things. I mean, they have to. They're always dodging NFL and MLB and everything else. So I get why they're doing what they're doing, but at the end of the day, it's like you have to stake your claim at some point. Like, you're going to have your market, and you have to appeal to that market, and you have to serve that market. And I don't think they were doing that with the previous model, but I think once Apple TV, I've heard rumors that they're dabbling in EPL soccer as well. And I think if they bring in the EPL and they're able to combine that package with MLS soccer, that'll expand the reach and the more watchability, or at least eyeballs on the sport. I think that's good. I mean, MLS soccer is still a decade away, I'd say, before they actually like compete on a global scale, even in like a micro scale. But we'll see.
The only way they compete is like when they start getting guys in their prime. Like that's just it. Like you have to start.
I think they're starting to. I think they're starting to do that with a number of programs. I mean, Inter Miami's about to go get Leo Messi and
like Christian Pulisic not being overseas is like something you got to get. Like that cannot happen anymore. Like your best American-born players cannot be playing overseas anymore.
Too. Like Jurgen Klinsmann turning over to Bruce Arena. Like everyone was talking like, oh, you have to. All American players have to play American soccer. He's like, no, I want them to go play in Europe because I'm trying to win. And if you want to win, like right now, which is what he was trying to do, got to play European soccer. So we'll see. It's part of the. But on the flip side, it's like, oh no, we have to grow this product domestically, and it's a little bit of give and take, I think. But I think MLS soccer it's on the uptick and it's still growing. And I think by the time we're media savants in our mid-50s, MLS soccer is going to be a much bigger deal than it is right now. But we'll see.
For sure. Speaking of we'll see, the Falcons' next defensive coordinator, Garrett Chapman. A lot of interest in this role. A lot of people being rumored. Corey Woodruff of the Falcoholic did a really good piece outlining all the different choices that they could go in. You could obviously promote from within with Frank Bush. Frank Bush obviously got a game where he called it against the Saints when Dean Pease was blindsided and hit and knocked out of that game. And things were fine by and large in that one. But so you have long-term. He's a long-term guy. Obviously was defensive coordinator when the Jets a couple of years ago. Texans before that. Like he has a lot of experience, but the linebackers have been good too. He's developed pretty well in that regard. So you're happy on that front. Troy Anderson looked pretty solid, especially towards the end of the year. That man's hits were just vicious, whether it was on special teams or just balls over the middle. That man hits hard. Troy Anderson's going to be a player, I think.
Still super raw.
But
he has so much more room for development too. That's the craziest thing about him.
But that's okay because they have a lot of vets and they're okay on that front. But Eagles defensive line coach Tracy Rocker, which I would love a lot. Titans defensive line coach was just probably my number one pick. It's a toss-up. I'm going to give my two number one picks based on who's been rumored to this point. So Terrell Williams, because you look just what they've done with Jeffrey Simmons and that defensive line over the last couple of years in Tennessee, and obviously there's a lot of overlap with Arthur Smith and the staff in Tennessee. Like that would be a huge get and an elevation for him, go from defensive line to calling plays. And then Deshae Townsend, the Jaguars passing game coordinator and CB's coach. Jags have been great. There is some history. They've crossed paths a little bit over the years, but those are probably my top two. Brian Flores has interviewed too. I don't think that's realistic. I don't think Flores is going to take this one. Could be wrong, but I would be surprised if he were to take the Atlanta DC job. We'll see, but I don't know. Of all the names, who fascinates you the most, Garrett?
The person who you finished with, Brian Flores. That's
really?
Someone, yeah, he's a strong defensive coach. He has a very colorful background when it comes to that, like developing players, and he's coming from the Pittsburgh Steelers, and generally speaking, even if it's just a year in that system, I mean, I think that's a great position for him to be in. And if he wants to see a bigger role, I think why not the Falcons? My concern with guys like that, so it's like I was going through this list, and like you have guys like Lovie Smith and Brian Flores and Vic Fangio. Those are all guys who, maybe not Vic Fangio, but the two guys before that, those are guys who are probably going to go be head coaches very soon. So, I mean, are we just trying to put a Band-Aid on this until we get a long-term guy? I mean, I know it's the NFL and that this is just the nature of the sport where it's like there's a lot of turnover and that's just the way it is. But I kind of want to have a situation where the Atlanta Falcons are set up in a situation that they have the same defensive coordinator for the next couple of years. And I think that kind of needs to go into the thought process because just how raw and how open this team is, it's going to be a lot of transition this year. And I think if we're going to go to a Vic Fangio or something like that, I know commitments only matter so much, I guess, but I want to see this guy in this role for the next 3 years, maybe 4 years, 5 years. And that's obviously a goal. maybe it's not realistic, but that's got to be one of my drawbacks with a guy like Brian Flores, who I think is at the first opportunity he's going to go be a head coach, because I think
As he should.
as he should, and I'm not going to try and say that he shouldn't do that, but look, for the long-term outlook of the Atlanta Falcons, that's what I'm concerned with, and I want a guy who's going to be here long-term, and long-term NFL style, but like Jim Schwartz is already off the list. He's the first guy who's gone and taken a job up in Cleveland. He's a bigger name. I think he's a great defensive coordinator. He's going to go be a very good up there in Cleveland. But Vic Fangio is really the guy that I want to see on this team. I don't think he's going to sign with the Atlanta Falcons, because I think he's going to go wherever Sean Payton goes.
Yeah.
Just because. It's a better system for him. It's more set up, and he can come in and just reset.
I've read that, but the problem with that is I think it's going to depend on where Sean ends up, because you know where he's not going to go? Back to Denver. And if Sean Payton goes to Denver, like, that's not a package deal. There's no way Vic Fangio is going back to Denver after getting fired there.
No, and I think that's the only scenario in which he would come to Atlanta. I mean, how many job openings are there right now for defensive coordinator? I mean, I knew there were a bunch
Vikings,
for offensive coordinator.
The Dolphins, Vikings, who else is open?
Broncos. Was that 4? 5 for Falcons?
Mm-hmm. I guess Cardinals technically. Panthers technically.
That's not technically, it is.
Well, no, because they might just promote Steve Wilkes, and if they do that, they do.
That's at 7. I mean,
yeah.
Of those, I'd say that the Falcons are in fine situation for all of those, considering the fact that they have so much cap space and they have an opportunity to come in and mold the team day one. And if they take that job, I think the Atlanta Falcons are a very attractive position, because you have an offense that plays a kind of style that I think a defensive coordinator would really like. It's that sort of ball control, and they'll run out the clock and long possessions.
We play Kentucky football.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
That's 100% what we do.
Yeah, not exactly the last couple of years, but like the last most of the years, but the last year or so, that not as much. But they're a little bit more high flying. One of the reasons why they didn't win as many games this year. But
that's why they're in a lot of games. It's because they're ball control and they don't make mistakes. They don't throw picks. They're just.
But they did make mistakes. That was the problem this year.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation, I guess, with Will Levis and everything. Draft conversation, which we can have, just not this second. But
I don't want to be upset.
Look, I think the Atlanta Falcons are an attractive option for most defensive coordinators, just for those options, just for those reasons. You have an offense that plays complementary football to what they want to do in defense, and you have a lot of money. You have a lot of draft capital too. You can form, and there are a lot of young pieces on this team that you can build around. So, I think the Falcons are a very attractive place. So it's like if we can go get one of those guys, I think why wouldn't they want to come here?
That's fair. I'm curious to see which one they ultimately go with. Who's your gut tell you? Because my gut says you're not gonna like this. My gut says they're just gonna promote Frank Bush.
I don't see an internal promotion. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, look, he has. If they want to keep the continuity, fine. I just want to bring in someone who's a little bit more experienced, you know, like Frank Bush. Yeah, he hasn't been a defensive coordinator in 12 years, a decade, really. I know he was an interim defensive coordinator for the Jets, but I mean, a full-time 2 years with the Texans, it's been over a decade. And that's really his only experience. So I just want to see some guy who's like I want Vic Fangio. That's who I want. I think that's just because he carries a lot of respect in the NFL. A lot of people really like him. He has that relationship already in place with a lot of people in the staff. And he's really good, you know? And like Dean Pease talked about changing a culture, and I think that if you continue and bring in a guy who's well-respected across the league, like Vic Fangio, then I think that's just check marks across the board. And if he's available and he's willing to come here, take him.
I want Terrell Williams. I just love what he's done with Jeffrey Simmons and company in Tennessee. Like, that defensive line's been nasty, and I want a defensive line promotion where it's just bring in someone who their bread and butter is defensive line, because I am so dang tired of year in, year out being like, what are we gonna do to fix this defensive line? Like, what are we gonna do here? So that's where I would go. I would go defensive line, and somewhere in that, maybe that's Rocker, maybe that's Williams. I don't know.
I like that. I'm fine with that. Your reasoning is sound. Like, look, this has been a rocky road when it comes to defensive line play. So, look, if they can elevate that, fine. I'll take that. But, I mean, at the same time, just go get a competent defensive line coach, which I think last year the defensive line, I think, took a step forward. I think it was a better defensive line, at least than it had been, which isn't, I guess, saying much. But it was competent. Taquan Graham, Grady Jarrett. I mean, those two guys
wasn't good. Like, it was competent.
Players.
That's how sad it is. It's like they weren't abysmal, but they weren't good. Like, this was not a good defensive line.
when he was healthy, when Taquan Graham was healthy, I mean, he was playing well.
He was fine.
Yeah. I mean, he's a starter. He's not
he
like
lost
a
the Chargers
stud,
game.
But, well, I won't go there. How was that game? That was a tough game.
Speaking of what place I don't want to go, you know what's picked up a lot of steam over the last couple of weeks? Like, friend of the pod, Jarrett Bailey, did a video on this, and a lot of people are pushing this of, like, Lamar Jackson makes sense for the Falcons. Lamar Jackson does not make sense for the Falcons. And I am going to lose my mind if this is a year-over-year situation where the Falcons, like, dip their toes into the veteran quarterback market and are like, hey, we're going to see what we can do here. Garrett, would you like to guess how many of the final 8 NFL teams still alive in the playoffs did not draft their quarterback?
Of the final 8.
How many have a quarterback they did not draft?
I think they all drafted him.
They did all draft him. All 8 were drafted by their own team. This is
the
not
Super
how
Bowl
you
champion last year traded for him.
Yeah.
It's not unheard of.
It's not unheard of.
It's also not a very good track record. Generally, you want the same guy in the system who's been there, and you compete more with a rookie.
Yeah.
I mean, they can afford him. Will he make this team more exciting? Yes. Will he make this team better? Yes. Would this team be a playoff team with Lamar Jackson? Yes.
They might be a playoff team without him, just because the AFC South is going to be so bad.
Yeah, but that was my next part.
Okay.
You're a playoff team without him.
Mm-hmm.
You have too many holes. Mm-hmm. Go plug those holes and figure the rest out. Desmond Ridder is good enough. He's good enough. But he's also good enough to that point where Lamar Jackson has not largely been unhealthy for the majority of his career. At least. Well, I don't know if he's ever played a full 16 games. I think he might have. Maybe he did when he was a rookie, but that's just because he was he was supplementing Joe Flacco. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's been healthy for a full 16 games schedule. 17 now. I'm not too thrilled with that. If I'm going to be paying him $45 million every single year, not very thrilled with the idea that he's not going to be healthy, and that was on the young half of his career, and it's only going to get worse as it goes along. Not thrilled with that idea. However, if you have a guy like Desmond Ridder coming in and replacing him off the bench and spot starts, he'd be one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. But I don't think they drafted him for that reason. I think they drafted him to see what he can do as a starter, and I think he showed me enough at the last half of last year, the last 4 games or whatever and change that he played. I think I saw enough. I want him to be the starter, and I want them to supplement the other positions on the field because, having a competent defense would be kind of nice in Atlanta for a change.
That would be a nice change. Lamar Jackson, I'm just not in. Like, I also don't think they're going to move him. Like, I saw this week that he's involved in the offensive coordinator search for Baltimore.
He's going to be in Baltimore. He's not getting out of Baltimore.
No.
They'll franchise tag him and he'll sign it. If he doesn't show up, let them deal with that problem. I don't want that problem here in Atlanta. I just don't want to deal with it.
We're not a quarterback away right now. Like, that's the other part of it. Yeah. It's just they're not a quarterback away.
The New York Jets can go do this. I mean, the Cleveland Browns thought they were a quarterback away, and they missed the playoffs.
And also, Deshaun was not good.
He looked bad. Like, objectively bad.
Hate to see it.
And he would look rusty. I think he'll come back and he'll be fine next year, but
let's hope not.
We'll save that part. But look, I think if he's going to get traded, Atlanta's going to be in the market for him. It's Arthur Blank. He's a sexy player he does a lot of things, and he's fun to watch, and he'll sell tickets and uniforms, whatever. He'll go to New York. I think New York will pay more to go get him. They'll send a small fortune, king's ransom, for Lamar Jackson. Is something I don't think that the Falcons are going to want to match if they know it's good for them. But
yeah, I would tend to agree. I'm not really worried about it. I don't think they're going to go down that road.
I don't think it's going to go that far.
No,
But I
I
said
think
the same thing about the Deshaun Watson thing, which he was all but a Falcon. He'd effectively signed the only thing he hadn't done is sign the contract.
Man. Well, lucked out there.
Yeah, for real.
Also, I think Ritter showed enough. He got better week over week, and I think it's enough where, like I said in the group chat with our friend of yesteryear, Max Markovich, about he's our Alex Smith. Like, I don't think Desmond Ritter's ever going to be a top 5 quarterback. I don't think he ever has that kind of, like what we're seeing in the AFC with Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Patrick Mahomes being the final 4. Like, Ritter's never going to be that guy. Like, I don't think it's just not there. I don't think he's going to pop.
Garoppolo. That's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I even think he can be better than that. Like, I think because he can move
Alex
around
Smith,
a little bit more.
Alex Smith also was a number 1 overall pick. Jimmy Garoppolo.
I don't think Alex Smith is number 1
literally
overall anymore. Like, I think if we did that draft now, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know where Alex Smith goes in like a redraft or like based on what we saw from him at Utah, what we know about quarterbacks now. I don't know if he'd still go number 1
overall. But I mean, he was also drafted for potential and then had 5 different offensive coordinators.
Yeah, he was kind of ruined early
years. He got ruined, and then he goes and gets Andy Reid and has a resurgence.
And
well, really,
too, like, they moved on.
Jim
They
Harbaugh.
added. He won a bunch of regular season games, and like
He's a good
people were like,
quarterback.
"Oh, he can't win the big one," and it's like, well, it's just bites the apple. Like it's just if he was still the Chiefs quarterback all these years later,
They would have
still would have gotten one with Alex Smith. Like,
They would have won a Super Bowl.
Right. Like, Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Like, get hot. Like, things happen. Like, I think you can win a Super Bowl with Desmond Ridder as your quarterback. I think he's smart enough. He's ball control. I think he'll have a good completion percentage. I think he's older. I think he won everywhere he's been.
He's a pro.
Yeah, like,
He's a pro.
I want Desmond Ridder to get the full shot, and I want to surround Desmond Ridder with just a high-octane offense, run-first mentality, great offensive line, and just kick the shit out of people week in, week out. Like, that is what I want this Falcons team to be, and I think they still just have a lot of work to do on the defensive line. I think they have a lot of work to do in the secondary, and I think they have a lot of work to do at wideout, like, which is kind of wild to think, but Calvin Ridley is going to be playing with Trevor Lawrence next year, and there was a lot of eliminated Zacchaeus still on this Falcons roster this year, and it's just Drake London, home run, great player. He's going to be fun to watch for years. Kyle Pitts, we're now starting to wonder, like, what's this going to look like, but he's still a guy.
When he
I don't
comes
know.
back healthy, I think we're going to have a different opinion of him.
I
We have
hope
a guy. Look, people thought that Drake London was verging on bust year 1, which obviously wild overreaction. Because once you plug in Desmond Ridder, a guy who's actually going to throw the ball down the field, unlike the other guy who will remain nameless. This guy throws the ball down the field and he hits his targets more often than not. And I think we saw a massive improvement from Drake London. And I think it's the same thing that we're going to see from an uber talented Kyle Pitts.
Mm-hmm.
This Falcons offense, I don't think they may draft a guy. I know I've done a lot of those mock drafts.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe like one of that fell out of like a Zay Flowers if he drops from Boston College. Maybe if there's that kid out of SMU, if he drops to maybe the 3rd round. Ideal scenario for the Atlanta Falcons. Go get like a future playmaker, another young guy, supplement him with Olamide Zacchaeus, who's a very strong number 3 option as far as wideouts go. Stick him in the slot. I think then you have an offense right there. That's a full-fledged offense, and maybe go get like a veteran center out on the market. I don't know who its centers or offensive linemen are out there for free agency.
They might need a right tackle.
No, he'll get franchise tagged.
Do you think so?
I'm confident that Caleb McGarry is going to get a franchise tag.
Okay.
I think that just makes too much sense, and I think Terry Fontenot he thinks with his head a little bit more than Thomas Dimitroff does or did, and that's the logical decision. I think prove it one more time. He was very good this year, and at least according to his previous years, comparatively speaking, Lindstrom's about to get the bag. Jake Matthews just restructured his deal to open up some money. He's going to be the left tackle. Caleb McGarry's going to get the franchise tag. Left guard, Elijah Wilkinson showed me enough that if he can stay healthy, that's fine. Maybe they go draft a center guard combo, somebody who can play both positions, and maybe go get another veteran, and that's your center and guard situation. Falcons are pretty much at that point set on offense. Now that you just funnel money and draft capital into the defense, I think that's a winning scenario right there. And the Atlanta Falcons can flip from if they won 7 games with this roster. I'm confident they can win 10 to 11 games next year, especially in this NFC South. With all the turmoil that's going on down here, they can win 10 or 11 games next year and push their way into the playoffs.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know if they'll advance past like a wild card weekend or anything like that. I'm not going to go that far.
We got to see what they do this offseason, like, and who they
Yeah,
draft.
well,
like,
yeah,
I'm just not. I don't know. We'll see.
They could.
They have a lot of money to spend. Yes,
like, that's a lot of money. Sometimes that kind of money goes to your head, and then you start overpaying for a Jadeveon Clowney or something, and pay him too much money. Then, like, would it surprise me if Clowney plays in Atlanta? No,
it would
I
surprise
don't know what
me.
that would cost, but we'll see.
Would
it surprise
really
me?
Quit.
No.
Like, there was some really weird stuff that happened at the end of his.
It was a weird situation.
I don't know if I want Jadeveon Clowney,
but that's also, he's played so much losing football. He's been on so many bad football teams that I don't even know if I want him, truthfully, because he's a superstar talent who has been on losing teams and has been a negative influence in a lot of places. And I'm not going to go that far to say he's the problem or whatever, but sometimes when you bring in that sort of mentality, it doesn't.
That's like a
really
last resort for
translate.
me. Like, if we we whip on some other bigger names, then it's like, all right, we'll circle back with Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know. I'm interested to see where they go.
One thing I will say, that this is the most important 2-year stretch, at least since 2007, 2008. The way I'm looking at it, because you have 2007 was a transformational year, for better or for worse. You lose Mike Vick, Bobby Petrino bolts for Arkansas. I mean, we saw what happened there. It was a dumpster fire. Year 2, you go get your quarterback, you get your head coach, you get a running back, competent offense with Roddy White on the outside. They look very good. They go to the playoffs. Now last offseason, I should say, Matt Ryan, we separate with him. We eat all of those bad contracts, absorb it. Still, they won 7 games. That's the difference. You have your head coach already in place. You have a quarterback already in place. But you have all this money. You have all this draft capital. You have 5 picks within your first 113. It's pretty important. And lots of potential this year, and I think that this is a playoff team next year. I think it can be, depending on the moves that they make. But I'm optimistic.
I am too. I think they're moving in the right direction. I'm okay. Like, I'm not freaking out about where they're going.
I feel better about them than I do the rest of the NFC South. I'll tell you that much.
Absolutely.
I'll guarantee you that.
The Braves offseason, kind of wrapping up here with pitchers and catchers reporting very soon.
20 days.
20 days. 3 more offseason predictions, though, from Chase Earl over at Sports Talk ATL that I wanted to run by you. So his 3, and I want you to tell me which ones you think is most likely to least likely for you. Ian Anderson wins the 5th and final spot in the rotation. The Braves try Vaughn Grissom out in left field. And the Braves at least make one more meaningful signing. How would you rank those 3, and what do you think is the most likely to least likely?
Define meaningful.
I guess it's probably like another starter, or they address left field and make a trade where they're like, we're doing something else. We're not running it back with Ozuna and Rosario as an option. We're not just going with Kevin Pillar on a minor league deal and whoever the other guy they signed.
All 3 would not surprise me, truthfully. I could see all 3 potentially happening. I kind of like Vaughn Grissom in left field more than I do at shortstop.
So what do you do at short, though, if that happens?
But that's the thing. And I think he's capable of playing shortstop. If he's capable of doing it, there's no other real option. At least Eddie Rosario can play competent defense sometimes, you know?
But, like, you can't put Ozuna out in the field anymore. Like, he is a full-time DH.
No. That has been an unmitigated disaster for the Atlanta Braves. But cutting him would also be a meaningful thing, you know? Like, did you say signing, or was it like a meaningful move?
Meaningful signing.
Okay, well, I guess I wouldn't count there. But none of them would surprise me. Ian Anderson, I could actually see. I would be very surprised if he doesn't make that 5th spot. I would actually go
Wait,
on the
really?
other side of that. Yeah.
Over Bryce?
Yeah. No, I would. No, I'd be a little surprised. Give me a little hesitation there for a second. But no.
Soroka doesn't
let's
start
not forget,
in that scenario, too.
Yeah, well, I will believe Soroka when I see it. Like, that's just where I am. Would I love to see Mike Soroka? No question. I would love to see Mike Soroka. Ian Anderson also has World Series starts under his belt. He has meaningful postseason experience. He is a veteran's veteran at this point. He is young, has so much potential still. People think that we've seen the most of like the max of what Ian Anderson can do. I'm not convinced that we have. I think he's an elite number 5. Maybe as a solid number 3. Because we saw that at times. We saw what he could be. And I think he just got into his head a little bit too much. And he just needed to hit the reset button. We'll see how he reacts to that. Because pitching is so mentally based. There's so much that goes into that. Just your confidence. My concern when he got sent down was that it was going to rattle him a little too much. And he was never going to come back. Well, he never came back. And that concerned me a little bit. But he hit the reset button. He's been at Wake Forest all offseason, pitching and trying to hit the reset button on everything and his confidence, his mechanics, everything else. I think he's doing the right things. I'd be very surprised just based off of the fact that he already has all that experience. He was on the opening day roster last year. He was on the World Series roster the year before that. So I'd be very surprised if he wasn't in this starting rotation to start the year. Will he stay there? That's a different question. Will he start there? I think he will.
I wonder, too, who's in the best interest as the starter, as that 5th guy? Like, of the 3, who do you think it helps the Braves the most if they win this job? Of those 3, Anderson, Bryce, or...
Bryce Elder,
Soroka?
Elder, Ian Anderson, and Mike Soroka.
Yeah, who do you think benefits the Braves the most if they win the 5th spot in spring training?
Mike Soroka. Just because if Mike Soroka comes out and wins that job, that means he's finally back.
Right. And that rotation is pretty nasty.
And then all of a sudden, like he was the best pitcher on that staff, standing next to Max Fried. He was the best pitcher on that staff. And that was a gut-wrenching loss when this team lost Mike Soroka. Him coming back, and if he's able to replicate what he was doing, that's similar. I'm not going to compare it like to like. That's like when Ronald Acuna is going to be coming back this year, and he's going to come in and make an immediate dominant impact. I think Ronald Acuna is going to have a resurgent year this year, assuming that he trusts that knee. The Atlanta Braves will be better this year if Ronald Acuna regresses to what he actually is. Ozzie Albies coming back to this lineup. I think this Braves team is going to be very good, but I'm getting kind of sidetracked here. Mike Soroka, though, I would compare his comeback to that of Ronald Acuna. Whereas he's an extremely talented player who was still not at his max capacity, and we'd seen flashes of it at times. And he's a Cy Young level pitcher. We saw that from him. He was still young. He was still really raw. What is he? Still 24 years old? 25 years old? He has the whole, like, his ceiling is way up here. So if he comes back and wins that 5 spot, I'd be very, very happy with that.
I think if Ian Anderson wins, then you're in some trouble. Like, I think they probably want him to win.
I wouldn't say trouble.
I mean, it just means that Soroka's not right, and you probably have to. The ship has sailed there, and then you're like, okay, Bryce is probably not a guy, and we probably have to move on from him. He's in that Colby Allard spot where he's like an odd man out, where it's like if it's not now, it's probably not going to happen for Bryce. I don't know. My gut says Bryce wins it though, of the 3.
Yeah, if Bryce Elder wins it, I will be probably the most discouraged. He's a good pitcher.
Also,
I don't think he has a long-term future with the Atlanta Braves.
Would you hate it if they brought in Mike Minor? He's still out there. A reunion with Mike, lefty.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't feel great. Charlie Morton is the only vet, really, and Charlie Morton was not himself last year.
I actually had we had a conversation with Alex Anthopoulos in November after the season obviously ended, and he had a very interesting explanation for that decision. It's basically they're just buying out his option year and extending it. That's essentially all it was. So it wasn't really a difference from anything else as like a money standpoint. So that part made me feel a little bit better. Part 2 was, if you look at his best seasons, it's when he has a full off season to prepare. So like he goes through the full situation where he rests, he gears up, he gets going, and then he hits full go by the time opening day comes around. He hasn't been able to do that. The 2 years that he struggled, 2020, obviously you have COVID and everything else, and they shut everything down. And then last year, after he's coming off of the broken leg. When he is not having to deal with all of those issues and those constraints, dude is an elite number 2. He's a top end pitcher, and he still has the swing and miss capabilities. We saw that in the second half of the season once he was actually able to get ramped up and fully into pitching mode. He still has swing and miss, and I think that's really all you need from him on a game-to-game basis. He lacked the consistency that I really wanted to see, and that's why I'm a little nervous on the deal. But it did confirm a few things to me that, well, Alex Anthopoulos knows what he's doing here, and he knows why he made that decision. And I'm going to defer to Alex Anthopoulos pretty universally. It's a lot of money, and I would have liked to have seen some of that money go elsewhere, like left field or maybe shortstop. But at the end of the day, it's like if you have a guy who can come in and be a steady everyday pitcher every 5 days, I think that's a very valuable thing to have. A guy who can go 6 innings, maybe 7. That's very important for this team.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if they're done, and if it does go awry, they just wait it out and they see how this just goes in spring training, and then they'll address it depending on how everybody looks. So yeah. I think that's something to monitor at the very least. Last thing on the Hawks. So the Hawks have a winning streak. They
healthy Hawks, man. I told you they got a run in them.
The healthy Hawks. And look, they it's so interesting because Jalen Johnson obviously not in the rotation right now, and watching. Oh my goodness, who were the Mavs earlier this week, and poor DeAndre Hunter, just no answer for Luka Doncic. Like Luka was doing some just ridiculous stuff to DeAndre Hunter in the first quarter of that game, where I think Luka had like 16 or something, but like
19.
I was just and I was just only watching DeAndre and Luka, and I'm like, DeAndre's not a small dude, and Luka just makes him look like a cornerback on a left tackle. Like it's just not really fair what Luka was doing to him.
That's a little unfair.
Go back and look at it. DeAndre looks just like a tall toothpick next to Luka, and it's just he has no chance keeping up with him. And then Luka doesn't score, I think, in the second quarter, and they figured some stuff out. But
who did they put on him in the second quarter?
Was
that when they put Bogey?
No, it was Capella, I think. I think Capella was on Luka a bunch in the second quarter.
They switched something up. It's like I was like,
I swear Capella was on him a lot.
Brad Rowland was live tweeting, and like they changed up some of the defensive formations, and they would push up to try and stop when they were pushing into the paint. They'd have John Collins push up and I don't know what exactly it was. They explained all of it, but
yeah,
they made a defensive change in the middle of the game,
which is coaching. Nice.
That was nice, and it worked.
They're playing really good basketball, and like I said in the group chat, where this is like, I'm not saying they're going to be the Celtics of last year, but when the Hawks have their 8, they are a really good basketball team. When they have their 8, when we don't have to play the holidays, when we don't have to play Jalen Johnson, when you don't have to play anyone else other than John Collins, Onyeka Okongwu, who is playing out of his mind and has really blossomed over the last week or so without Capella coming off the bench, and it's actually been better. And Trey and Onyeka's chemistry has gotten a lot better too. Their pick and roll has been fantastic. Onyeka's just more active than Capella at this point, and also will conserve Capella a lot more if he's a bench guy and he's not asked to do as much as he was having to do before Onyeka was starting to break out here. But it's Onyeka, JC, DeAndre, DeJounte, Trey, Bogey, AJ, and that's it, and Capella. When you have those 8 and you just mix and match who's on the floor of those 8, it's a great thing. When like you can stagger DeJounte and Trey, and Bogey's the only guy that you're staggering in there because Delon Wright's gone, and Aaron Holiday is just not he's just not good. The Holidays are just not good and borderline unplayable. And you look at it and you're like, this all works. AJ Griffin is a home run draft pick. Like, he is a really, really good player. His jumper is so smooth. He is a player I'm not saying he should start, but I'm also, we're getting to that point where I'm like, are we sure he doesn't belong? Because it takes him a while to enter the game, and you're like, the offense was working against Dallas, so that didn't bother me as much, but I wonder if at a certain point, because the offense has not been great all year long, that like the offense is just better when he's in the game, and he's a great shooter all over the court. and he's great. I'm all in on AJ Griffin, but I'm back.
Ah, there we go.
My computer just completely shut down and restarted without any part of me saying that. So, folks, as we continue on this part of the podcast, my podcast or my desktop literally just shut down for the first time ever while
I
recording.
was about to just continue like live radio style, but I was like, wait a second, we can edit things, can't we?
Yeah, we can edit things. So that happened. So apologies on that front, but it was a nice lead in to what the Hawks have been doing over the last win streak. What's been the biggest change for you, Garrett?
They're in the second half of the season officially.
Mm-hmm.
What was that? 4 games ago that they entered the second half of the season.
Mm-hmm.
they're officially 4-0 in the second half.
It's nice.
It is the most consistently irritating theme with the Atlanta Hawks, just because they decide that they want to play good basketball in the second half of seasons. They've done it now, assuming that this holds, the last 3 years in a row. They play their best basketball. The part that makes me feel a little bit better is the fact that they didn't play bad basketball in the first half. They were just average. Last year, they were objectively terrible in the first half of the season. This year, they were just average, and they have a very strong launching point. And I think against the Mavs on Wednesday, we really you hinted at it, where you kind of said it. They had their 8-man, and we saw a playoff game. Like, that's what the playoff rotation would look like. And kudos to Jalen Johnson for he kind of had to come in and play a couple more minutes than I think Nate McMillan was really expecting, just due to the foul trouble that DeAndre Hunter was getting into. But kudos to him. He came in and played well. Wasn't magnificent, but he was good, especially when he's coming in cold, and the way that it just sort of happened. I mean, yeah, look, good. It was good enough. And the way the Hawks battled through that third quarter, tough third quarter, whistle was not their friend in this game. DeAndre Hunter battled through foul trouble. I don't think it was quite as pronounced as the way you saw it, but it's like, look, you're playing Luka Doncic. He's probably one of the best players in the NBA right now, if not the best, as far as like how he's playing right now. So
was he a Hawk?
You play a guy like that. He's gonna make you look silly more often than not. The way he was able to kind of reset on Luka and play better basketball, kudos to him for that. I'll look at the positive there. Like, DeAndre Hunter as a whole, I mean, he's been better. He hasn't been as good as what I wanted to see at times this year. But for the most part, he's doing what we need him to do. Like, he's playing 3 and he's playing the 4 defensively, effectively. He's largely average when he's shooting the basketball, which is all I want from him. I need him to stop turning the ball over so much, but then after that, it's like he's been pretty good outside of that. I mean, he's justified that contract, and he's been healthy. He's healthy. He's third on the Hawks in minutes played. I will take that all the way. No question about it. Because the best ability, especially for DeAndre Hunter, is availability, and for the most part in his career, he hasn't been available.
Yeah,
he has this year, and he's shown that he is a largely above average player on offense and a solid player on defense. Fine. That's good for me. Because when I have 2 ball-dominant guys like DeJounte and Trey, catch the ball, shoot the ball, make your shot. That's all I want on offense from him. And I'm seeing that. So I'm happy. But I liked what I saw. I think that this is a big game tonight against the Knicks. The Hornets tomorrow. My question really comes down to, is Bogey going to be healthy? He's played, 19 consecutive minutes at one point in the second half. We'll see how that goes here in this game. I think he's going to miss one of those games, so I think we'll see a little bit more Jalen Johnson as they kind of push the lineups around. It's that or it's the holidays. So I know you're not happy with any of those options, but I'll take Jalen Johnson and his development over any of the Holiday brothers. But
you know who I would take? Dylan Wright.
Yeah. Well, we've seen
Kevin Herter.
Also Trey. I want to see if Trey's going to play. I don't know if Trey's going to play both nights of this back-to-back. I would imagine he plays tonight against the Knicks because he loves playing the Knicks.
Yeah.
And then he's not going to play tomorrow.
Is it in Atlanta or in New York tonight?
Both are in Atlanta.
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to buy tickets, but then they're like $60.
What are they wearing tonight? Do you know what uniform?
No, I don't know.
Okay. They're all good. I don't know if they're wearing the peach one, peach date night, or
We'll
it's yeah, I think the thing too is just I don't know who gets moved to this group. Like I guess it's John Collins is still the only one who makes sense to get moved, and I don't know what his value is right now because everyone's value around the league is skewed. Where you see like the Spurs want 2 first-round picks for Jakob Poeltl, and you're like, all right. When you look at just what teams are asking for, just rotation guys all around the league, you're like, the market's not real right now. So I don't know what it will ultimately cost, but I have 2 trades, and I want you to tell me which one do you think you would prefer? Crowder for Collins, straight up. Like that's just a swap. Gives Phoenix help. It makes sense for both sides, I think. The other one though that I think intrigues me more, that I think actually would help the Hawks a lot more, to 2 for 1. The Wizards are they're not going to be a playing team.
You're going to say Kyle Kuzma, aren't you?
I'm going to say Kyle Kuzma and my old friend Delon Wright. Like that, the salaries work. So I would flip John Collins for those 2. Kyle Kuzma, I think he only got one more year on his deal after this. Delon Wright, obviously a bunch of success with this team last year. He's kind of bogey insurance with the injury stuff there. There could be lineups where Max, this is his dream scenario of DeJounte and Delon Wright sharing a backcourt together for stretches of games.
That would be fun.
That's my trade, is I want Kuzma and Delon Wright for John Collins. The shooting with Kuzma and the spacing I think will be better. You have to do something about the offense because the offense is not good enough right now.
Yeah.
How
is he defensively?
Not great. But when you have DeJounte and DeAndre and Onyeka on the floor.
You'd need Onyeka and Clint Capella to step up, but you'd have a lot more space. Honestly, that kind of makes sense.
You don't
hate that,
right?
You have to push to a 9-man rotation.
Yeah, but I would do that. And also, it might be an 8 because someone gets injured.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I didn't realize his numbers from 3 were this good.
I'm telling you, this is the trade.
34%?
I think if yeah. If you're the Hawks, this is the trade.
I mean, he's not going to get that much volume. He's not getting 7.5 shots a game.
No, but
I can guarantee you he's not getting that.
That man is fine playing, moving the corner.
If he takes 5,
3 corner threes tonight.
Actually, if you look, I'm looking at his numbers right now. When he averages 5.5, he has 36.6%, 5.5, 36%, and 34.1%. Fine. I'm good with that. If he averages five threes a game, that's pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
You know that it kind of makes sense. But I don't know. You definitely downgrade at the power forward position.
I don't know if it's a downgrade in this scheme.
But the thing is, it might make more sense within the flow of this offense.
Yeah. And I think Kuzma,
because I think one of the biggest things we've seen specifically from John Collins in this team, they're 4-0, and John Collins is hitting his shots. Mm-hmm. So, is there a confidence that this is the John Collins that we're going to have, which may happen? I kind of do want to see another depth point guard, like a true point guard, like Delon Wright. That trade actually makes a lot of sense to me. I think it makes sense to me. You downgrade at power forward, but he fits the offense a little bit. Yeah, all right.
You're in. Me. I've talked you through this.
Yeah, and does the money work?
Yes.
Okay.
It's my favorite trade machine move. That's what I do. And I also think John would like it because John would be partnered with Bradley Beal, and it's those 2. Like, he's the number 2 there. Clear number 2.
Yeah.
Him and Porzingis actually would not be a terrible fit, I don't think, as a front court duo. I think they would mix and match. I think he'd be okay.
I think that actually makes too much sense, so
he went
no
to
way
Wake,
it happens.
North Carolina, not far from Virginia. I don't know. That's my move. If I'm
It makes sense.
if I'm Landry
It makes
Fields.
sense. We think through it.
Yeah.
I didn't realize he was this crazy on offense. He's up to 21 points a game this year. I mean, his usage is... He's got a lot of height. What's his usage rate, though? Where do I find that?
Where are you on?
Oh, I'm on Pro Basketball Reference.
You just scroll down a little bit further.
Where'd it go?
He is. Let's see.
This is great radio. Sorry.
No, this is good. Oh, he's 28%,
Okay.
which is pretty high.
That is pretty high.
Like
John Collins is
MVP,
down to
like Trey,
15,
for instance,
right?
for reference, it's like always around 31. Like Trey is only around
he's
31.
Yeah. So that's pretty high usage. That concerns me a bit.
But like that's just not sustainable. Like that's not, you can't play winning basketball when that's the usage rate for Kuz. Like that's just not.
But I think Kyle Kuzma is also a lot more willing to come in and play kind of a backseat role. I think I could
He's
see
shooting
that.
43% on quarter threes.
Beautiful. That's all I want
That's
from him.
my thing. Is like he's
That's all I
43%
want from
on
him.
corner threes. Like if that's his role and he's good with it, like that's just bread and butter. When Trey and
Come in and
Yeka
do
pick
one
and roll,
thing, two things well. He hits his open shots.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't need to create for himself. We have
nope, don't
three
need
guys
that.
who can do for that, plus Delon Wright in that move. I like that move. It kind of makes a lot of sense. I'm on board because I don't think John Collins is going to be here.
No,
I just don't think. I don't think it's tenable at this point. And this
No.
team needs to win games. The only thing that I could see, one of the big things I could see detracting from that move is the fact that now we're winning a couple basketball games. And if we continue to win games over the next 2 weeks, Tony Ressler's going to stick his fat hands into the middle of this again and block deals. He did it with Paul Millsap a couple years ago. Wasn't a good basketball team, but he did it because, well, the team's winning a couple of games, but it turned out to be just an enigma, and they flamed out. I don't know. Whenever owners meddle in the operations of game management, team management, almost never works. It almost never works, and I never want to see that. It's almost always a bad sign, especially in the NBA. More the NBA more than most. Worked for Jerry Jones for a few years in the NFL, but
yeah,
we are where we are.
Garrett, what can the good folks check out from you all over the internet this week?
Another big weekend for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Big recruiting weekend, so we'll be catching up with some recruits, and I will be posting some content as the weekend goes on. Hawks in action, of course, so we'll be in studio reacting to all that good stuff. So got a couple shows this weekend, so catch me in 92.9 The Game all weekend long.
There you go. Garrett, always a pleasure. Thank you, and I will talk to you next week.
Let's do it.